The national tone of color. The Russian avant-garde of the 1920s-1930s gave birth to several major schools of art whose disciples founded their work on the unique principles defined by their leader. We have already mentioned two of them, Malevich and Matushin. Petrov-Vodkin and Filonov created others. The work of Kuzma Petrov-Vodkin and his followers constitutes one of the summits of Soviet art in the 1920s and 1930s. As is often the case, the creators of new artistic systems are intolerant of other innovative artists. Malevich was constantly in conflict with Tatlin, and Filonov disowned them all, while they all in turn rejected Petrov-Vodkin. Looking back at this period, one observes all these masters going in the same direction, although along different paths. In his thesis about transcending visual attraction and gravity, Malevich managed to express the great principle of the new comprehension of space that unites them all. Larionov's rayonism, Kandinsky's abstract art, Malevich's suprematism and Filonov's analytical methods were, despite all these differences, systems based on the principle of transcending attraction. The structures that appeared in their work were referring to a world more universal than the one in which attraction reigns. The concept of planetary, invented by Petrov-Vodkin, can be applied to them all. The original talents of Petrov-Vodkin blossomed in 1910s. Exactly at that time he was won over by the color and forms of icon art and the frescoes of the old Russia that had just been discovered. One cannot understand the work of Petrov-Vodkin without having regard of their influence, above all the frescoes. This influence was indirect but essential. Before the revolution, he created paintings rich in original music, with Russian overtones that have enriched Russian modern painting. Mother, Morning, Bazaar's Morning, Young Women on the Volga and others. The incomparable system of color and visual construction of space specific to Petrov-Vodkin is revealed here in all its intensity. The art of Petrov-Vodkin is opposed to Impressionism, characterized by the vibration and contrast of color. Their only resemblance is that both are based on the principle of complementary colors. One cannot see in Petrov-Vodkin's paintings this original element of color, this dust of color that one finds in the work of Larionov, for example. This pictorial utilization of color, as Malevich would have said, is limited to three elements: red, blue, and yellow, primary colors that cannot be dispersed and from which originate all the richness of tone. In Young Women on the Volga, this principle is applied in a particularly direct manner. but the famous three-color palette of Petrov-Vodkin did not lead to a pictorial impoverishment, since each large local surface was filled with gradations of color. The pictorial harmony of Petrov-Vodkin is deeply national in its perception of color. In his paintings, the tone and quality of the blue, red, and green are the same as in the frescoes of old Russia. The painter reflected a great deal on the art of various peoples and on the national originality of color in daily life, reaching the conclusion that it is determined by the local color. After traveling in Central Asia and seeing the majolica of Samarkand minarets, he understood that the emerald color only existed there, and that it is generated by the burning gold of the desert as its complement. It is a conjuration of the blazing desert by the emerald. The red, of a specific tone called Kumach, has also become national color, purely Russian. It is the Kumach shirt worn by peasants whose red is complementary to the green of the fields. In the 1920s, Petrov-Vodkin taught at the recently transformed Academy of Fine Arts. Many great artists came from his workshop: Alexander Lapo-Danilevsky, Sokolov, and Evenbach, to name but a few. Filonov and the Masters of Analytical Art. In Russian art, Pavel Filonov occupied a special place before the First World War. In 1932, after his work was exhibited for the last time at the Russian Museum during the exhibition dedicated to the 15th anniversary of the Revolution, Filonov was banished from the country's artistic life. No other Russian avant-garde leader had to suffer during his lifetime from more friends the persecutions, nor after his death from such global silence. Only the legend of Filonov remained, transmitted word of mouth by his students. At the academy which he was forced to leave, Filonov had already been marked as a black sheep. He exhibited his work for the first time at the Union of Youth in 1910. His early works were his first fully conscious opposition to Cubism. The creative methods of the Russian painter, who had begun conceiving the principle of analytical art, objected to Cubist geometrification. In 1912, he wrote his unpublished article, "The Canon and the Law," in which he defined two methods to create a painting. When I show the construction of a form or a painting, I can either act in conformity with the idea I have of the construction of this form, that is to say, in a preconceived manner, or seize and reveal the law of its organic evolution. This is how one can reveal the construction of a form in a preconceived manner, the canon, or in organic manner, the law. Filonov used here for the first time the term organic, so important in his artistic conception. For him, cubism is the arbitrary creation of form through the geometrification of the object represented. The law, contrary to the canon, assumes another way, which is the construction of the form from particular to general, allowing to evolve to the most particular, the most developed things. You will then see what is truly general, what you didn't expect. All these theses show that Filonov's methods refutes cubism. The relationship to nature in the work of the cubist seems insufficient and elementary to him. Of geometrification, which does not reflect the least properties and processes of nature possessing a visual expression, he opposes the principle of organic growth, like the growth of a tree, or the artistic form which he achieves through analytical art. Organics against mechanics is how Filonov's position can be summarized. One of the principal theses of his analytical methods is madness. The painter constructs his painting like nature creates large formations from atoms and molecules. Filonov painted large canvases with a small brush. Each contact with the canvas, each point, was for him a unit of action, and this unit always operates simultaneously through form and color. The painter wrote, "Apply with perseverance and precision a color worked through each of its atoms, so it penetrates into it like heat in a body and is organically linked to the form, just like floral tissue and color are linked in nature." For Filonov, the process of life is a specimen or a model that the painter follows to create a work of art. He does not want to imitate the forms created by nature, but the methods nature uses to act or operate. Filonov believed that contemporary painters, Cubists and realists, were interacting with nature and society in a narrow and unliteral manner, taking into account only two properties in reality, form and color, while every phenomenon possesses an unimmeasurable number. He thought that the reform of Picasso was scholastic, formalistic, and without any revolutionary reach, as Picasso was drawing, like Repin, only the form and color at the periphery of objects, more or less the theory of the school, the people, and the tribe of the master. Filonov's methods was an attempt to draw in the sphere of creative expression the whole qualitative complexity of life with its visible and invisible manifestations. Filonov, convinced that all these properties and phenomena, visible and invisible, can find their visual expression in painting, developed his thesis on the seeing eye and knowing eye. From the first depend the color and form of the object. The knowing eye intuitively understands hidden processes, and the artist paints them, giving them an imagined form, that is to say, a non-figurative manner. This is why figurative art and elements of non-figurative art are often combined in his paintings. Alexei Kruchenik said about Filanov that he was the eyewitness of the invisible. Filanov participated in the grand exhibition that took place in the Winter Palace in 1919. He exhibited 22 paintings. Two cycles, which had already been defined during the decade preceding the revolution, appear throughout his work. One of them concerns the modern city that Filanov, like Gurov and Khlebnikov, saw as a source of evil, mutilating man physically as well as morally.